Harley-Davidson showrooms, once buzzing with life, now sit in unsettling silence while many dealerships struggle to keep their doors open. The crisis runs deeper than most imagine, and grasping the entire picture is essential if you care about this legendary brand's future. Stick around until the end. What you uncover might shift the way you view Harley forever, and you won't want to miss it. Showroom silence. The roar once filling Harley showrooms has faded into a hollow echo. Step into some dealerships today and you'll no longer hear lively customer chatter or the steady thrum of test rides. Instead, sales staff loiter idly, passing time with small talk as rows of chrome motorcycles sparkle under harsh fluorescent lights with no admirers in sight. Not long ago, those same sales floors had waitlists so long riders would put deposits down months ahead, convinced they were buying not just transport but a piece of cultural identity. Now, rather than boasting about long backlogs, employees practically plead with customers to test ride, explore financing options, or simply take a bike home before the quarter ends. Dealers themselves describe the mood as eerie. One Wisconsin manager recalled when Saturdays felt like festivals, food trucks, music, and lines spilling out the door. These days, he confessed, they resemble funerals instead. The change hasn't been gradual. It's been sharp. Empty lounge chairs, untouched coffee pots, phones barely ringing. Riders who once treated Harley dealerships as gathering spots no longer show up, leaving the brand's most loyal partners scrambling for survival. But that silence was only the opening act of a larger storm brewing inside the glass walls. Corporate oversupply. Harley continued flooding dealers with motorcycles they couldn't move. That one decision made at the corporate level ended up suffocating the very partners who carried the brand forward. Normally, consistent supply matched steady demand, but as interest cooled, shipments still poured in, filling warehouses and showrooms until every inch of space became a burden. Each unsold bike brought hidden costs. Dealers financed their showroom stock through short-term loans called floor plan financing. When interest rates climbed, those idle machines turned into a financial noose. What should have been symbols of freedom now lined up like overdue bills. Dealers complained the company cared more about quarterly shipment targets than about long-term loyalty. The more motorcycles Harley forced through pipelines, the deeper the debt grew. One Illinois dealer said shipment days once felt like celebrations but now seemed like receiving a truckload of bricks strapped to his neck. For small family-owned stores, even a handful of unsold bikes meant thousands of dollars drained monthly in interest. Multiply that across seasons and the burden became unbearable. And while dealers drowned in inventory, a fresh betrayal appeared, not from delivery trucks but from Harley's very own website. E-commerce betrayal. Harley's corporate site transformed into the biggest competitor for its own dealers. For decades, merchandise, helmets, jackets, gloves, t-shirts kept dealerships afloat even when motorcycle sales dipped. But as the company leaned into online strategy, it offered the same products at discounts of 40 to 60% below in-store prices. Customers who once browsed merchandise while waiting for service began snapping photos of price tags and ordering the same gear from their phones at home. For dealers, this felt like outright sabotage. An Arizona owner described how carefully built seasonal displays became useless once customers realized they could save big online. Harley justified the move as part of a global branding push, but in practice it gutted accessory sales, the lifeline of smaller shops. The sting felt worse since many dealers had spent heavily on corporate-mandated showroom renovations, transforming their spaces into cathedral-like displays just as revenue streams dried up. With merchandise collapsing and bikes piling up, dealers searched desperately for answers. Soon the financial reports confirmed what the silent showrooms had already whispered. The numbers collapse. The numbers revealed a grim truth dealers already sensed. Sales had fallen off a cliff. Harley's earnings painted the decline in brutal detail. By the last quarter of 2024, motorcycle shipments were nearly cut in half compared to earlier cycles. Revenue dropped more than one-third, and Harley itself projected that 2025 sales would remain flat at best, or decline another 5%. Analysts who once praised Harley as a stable luxury brand now warned of unpredictable volatility. Investors punished the stock, pushing its value down even as broader markets climbed. For dealers, these figures weren't abstract. They explained the empty showrooms, the missing calls, and the dust gathering on bikes despite enticing financing offers. It wasn't poor salesmanship, it was structural decline visible in Wall Street charts, and in unpaid bills shuffled across dealership desks. The numbers confirmed the silence wasn't temporary, it was systemic, and yet those figures still didn't capture the deeper cultural collapse creeping into Harley's core. Aging riders. Harley's most dedicated base is aging out, and replacements are scarce. The brand thrived for decades by catering to baby boomers chasing freedom on two wheels. That generation poured money into chrome and touring rigs. But the average Harley rider today is mid-50s, and climbing. Younger riders, those in their 20s and 30s, aren't buying in. Faced with heavy bikes, high prices, and costly insurance, they simply turn away. Cultural tastes shifted too. For younger generations raised on smartphones, ride-sharing, and electric scooters, freedom no longer means a roaring V-twin, but flexible mobility. Even those interested in bikes gravitate toward lighter, cheaper models from Honda, Yamaha, or KTM. The Harley mystique of rebellion doesn't resonate with debt-laden millennials and Gen Z. Dealers see it clearly. Fewer fresh faces walk in, and many admit they're selling to a shrinking club. Harley's gamble to draw in younger buyers with new products only exposed more cracks. Product misfires. Some of Harley's boldest bets failed hard. The Livewire electric bike promised blistering acceleration and modern design, but priced near 30 grand, riders dismissed it. Limited range and a muted sound only reinforced skepticism. Harley eventually spun it off, but the damage lingered. Loyalists felt alienated, and younger riders laughed it out of showrooms. Then came the Pan America, Harley's bid for the booming adventure touring segment. On paper it rivaled BMW and KTM. In reality, Harley loyalists shunned it for looking nothing like their cruisers, and adventure riders distrusted Harley's lack of dirt riding heritage. Dealers watched Pan Americas sit for months, discounted heavily just to move. The Street Series, meant as an entry point, suffered from poor quality and uninspired design before Harley quietly killed it. These misfires weren't just bad bets, they revealed a company unsure of its own identity. And while models struggled on the floor, chaos brewed in the boardroom. While dealerships fought for their lives, Harley's boardroom fought itself. Leadership, which should have brought steadiness during turmoil, instead turned into a stage for conflict. CEO Jochen Zeitz faced fierce criticism as sales plunged. Inventory stacked up and product launches fizzled. Activist shareholder H Partners mounted a proxy battle, insisting Harley had lost direction and needed a new course. Analysts openly questioned whether Zeitz could survive another year, while dealers wondered who, if anyone, was steering the company's future. This proxy fight wasn't just about personalities, it exposed a rift over Harley's very identity. Should the brand double down on heritage, selling nostalgia as a premium, or gamble on radical reinvention, even if it risked alienating its core? As executives clashed, the confusion trickled down to dealerships. Some dealers said they got contradictory instructions on budgets and events. Others claimed corporate communication dried up completely, leaving them in the dark. For a company built on loyalty and community, the public infighting was devastating. Harley no longer projected confidence, it broadcasted doubt, and as leadership wavered, the cracks spread through its dealer network. Dealer shutdown. From San Jose to Bloomsburg, closures piled up. In California, a long-running San Jose dealership abruptly shut its doors, reopening under new owners just weeks later. Customers were confused, staff left uncertain about their futures. In Pennsylvania, a dealership that had served Bloomsburg for 35 years closed for good, leaving a hole in the local riding scene. To riders, losing the shop felt like losing a landmark. These weren't one-offs across the country. Dealerships quietly folded as profits evaporated. Family-owned stores, some operating for generations, buckled under unsold stock, rising interest rates, and empty showrooms. Some closed without warning, stranding employees. Others tried to sell to bigger groups, but buyers hesitated to inherit the risk. The fallout wasn't just financial, it was cultural. Communities lost gathering hubs, mechanics lost their trade, and Harley's presence dimmed in towns where it once defined local identity. Each shuttered store served as proof that the crisis was no longer theoretical. It was hitting Main Street America, and as more dealerships collapsed, desperation became the only option left. Dealer desperation. Some Harley dealers stopped selling bikes. They started selling survival. Families who had proudly run dealerships for decades now faced foreclosure notices and mountains of debt. Parents who once dreamed of handing the business down to their kids instead mortgaged their homes to cover floor plan costs for bikes that just sat unsold. What used to be a moment of pride, trucks delivering new motorcycles, became a moment of dread. Each shipment meant more debt, more sleepless nights. Emotional exhaustion set in. Owners admitted to breaking down in back offices, unsure how to tell loyal staff that layoffs were coming. Longtime mechanics were cut to part-time hours. Parts clerks worried each paycheck might be the last. Families begged corporate for relief, credit extensions, buybacks, or even a pause on shipments. But Harley's responses felt cold and insufficient. The company demanded discipline, but to dealers it felt like abandonment. Some slashed prices, practically selling at cost just to keep cash moving. That desperation finally forced corporate to respond with a solution that sounded clinical on paper, but to dealers came far too late. Inventory right-sizing. Harley rolled out a new plan called right-sizing, aimed at shrinking dealer inventory by double digits so supply better matched actual demand. On paper it made sense. By reducing shipments, Harley hoped to ease floor plan costs, stabilize pricing, and stop the endless cycle of discounts. Executives boasted inventory levels had already dropped more than 13%, proof the plan was working. But on showroom floors, right-sizing created new problems. Dealers already starved for foot traffic now had fewer models to display. Customers who did come in often walked away because the bike he wanted wasn't available. One dealer compared it to running a grocery store with half the shelves empty. From the corporate side, right-sizing was about buying time and calming Wall Street. On the ground, it was another squeeze. Dealers needed relief in volume. Right-sizing delivered neither fully, and just as Harley tried to stabilize, another storm arrived. One they couldn't control: tariffs. Tariff trap. Global politics hit Harley harder than nearly anyone else. The company had long balanced its American image with an international supply chain, and when trade wars reignited, Harley was caught in the crossfire. In 2025, the threat of new tariffs landed like a hammer. Harley warned investors that import and export duties could cost up to $75 million in a single year. That wasn't just a hit to profits, it risked wiping them out completely. Dealers in border states worried about Canadian and Mexican customers suddenly facing higher prices. Executives scrambled to recalculate margins, but answers were scarce. Investors punished Harley's stock again, spooked by the uncertainty. Critics argued Harley had been unprepared, repeating mistakes from earlier European trade disputes without building safeguards. Now history was repeating, only with higher stakes. Dealers feared they'd pay the price for political fights they had no say in. Customers already hesitant about costs might be driven off entirely by tariff-driven hikes. For small-town showrooms, one policy decision in Washington or Brussels could mean survival or closure. Harley's problems weren't just cultural or financial anymore, they were geopolitical, and that's why the board turned to a surprising new leader. New CEO gamble. In fall 2025, Harley shocked the industry by naming Artie Starrs, former CEO of Topgolf, as its new chief executive. Starrs had zero background in motorcycles or manufacturing, but he was known for turning lifestyle brands into cultural hubs. The message was clear: Harley wanted to pivot from pure engineering toward lifestyle and experience. Investors saw fresh thinking, dealers and riders saw disconnect. How could a golf and entertainment executive understand the grit of the open road? Critics argued Starrs' appointment was more about optics than strategy. A PR move meant to charm Wall Street. But charm doesn't erase debt or bring in new riders. Still, Harley had run out of safe choices. With aging demographics, collapsing sales, and rising tariffs, reinvention was the only option. Starrs represented a roll of the dice. Whether he could save Harley or speed its downfall was anyone's guess. Industry dominoes. Harley's struggles didn't exist in isolation. They sent shockwaves through the entire motorcycle world. When the most recognizable American brand faltered, confidence in the whole industry cracked. Suppliers dependent on Harley orders tightened their belts. Smaller brands already hanging on by threads felt the chill as buyers hesitated. In cities once filled with rumbling V-twins, dealerships of all stripes grew quieter. Even international competitors noticed. Some saw opportunity, others feared contagion. If Harley could stumble this hard, no brand was untouchable. Analysts warned of a domino effect. If Harley dealerships closed en masse, nearby accessory shops, custom builders and independent garages would collapse too. The motorcycle ecosystem, once vibrant and self-sustaining, was now fragile, held together by dwindling loyalty and nostalgia. For riders, it wasn't just about one company's missteps. It was about watching an entire culture edge closer to collapse. Political weaponization. As Harley's crisis deepened, politicians once again pulled the brand into their battles. In past decades, Harley had been used as a symbol of American grit, but now, that same symbolism became a political football. Trade disputes turned Harley into an example of globalization's risks. Lawmakers blamed the company for outsourcing, even as tariffs boxed it in. Some used Harley's troubles to score points about protecting American jobs, while others cited it as proof of outdated business models needing reform. Harley was no longer just a motorcycle company. It was a case study in the culture wars. Riders who once proudly saw their bikes as above politics now found themselves dragged into the arguments. Buying a Harley felt less like a lifestyle choice and more like making a statement. For a brand built on freedom, nothing felt more suffocating. Gen Z rejects chrome. At the heart of Harley's decline lies a brutal truth: young riders just don't want it. Gen Z, the next generation of buyers, rejects chrome, heavy touring bikes, and the outlaw imagery Harley once sold with ease. They lean toward lightweight, tech-driven machines, electric scooters, connected EV bikes, or even ditching ownership entirely for subscription-style mobility. To them, Harley's loud pipes and heavyweight frames seem more like relics than aspirations. Surveys show younger riders value sustainability, affordability, and digital integration far above brand heritage. Harley's push to attract them with electric models like the Livewire fell flat. Prices were too high and the identity felt diluted. For Gen Z, Harley's core promise doesn't resonate. They don't want to look like rebels from the 70s, they want to look like innovators of the 2030s. And that cultural gap may be the hardest challenge Harley will ever face. Legacy on the line. Now the company stands at a crossroads. Every decision feels like a gamble with history itself. Will Harley reinvent fast enough to capture a new generation? Or will it fade into a nostalgia brand, remembered only in museums and documentaries? For over a century, the name meant freedom, rebellion, and America on two wheels. But as dealers shut down, as stock collapses, as young buyers walk away, the question grows louder. Can Harley survive the decade? The answer will decide not just the company's fate, but the fate of American motorcycling as a whole. If Harley falls, it won't just be a corporate failure. It will mark the end of an era. And right now, the road ahead looks more uncertain than ever. Outro. The fall has already started. Harley-Davidson is no longer the unshakable giant it once was. It's a brand fighting for survival. From boardroom turmoil to dealer closures, from tariffs to generational rejection, every challenge piles on the lap. What comes next could either be the most remarkable comeback in motorcycle history, or the final chapter of a legend. For riders, fans, and skeptics alike, one thing is certain: the outcome will redefine what it means to be an American motorcycle. The road ahead. What happens next will test Harley-Davidson like never before. The brand has already survived world wars, economic crashes, and oil crises. But this challenge feels different. This isn't about one bad quarter or a single failed product. It's about relevance itself. Can Harley reinvent what freedom means for a generation that doesn't dream in chrome and gasoline? Can it bridge the gap between heritage and technology without losing its soul? If it succeeds, the comeback story could inspire not just bikers but every American industry struggling with change. If it fails, the collapse will serve as a warning that even legends can fade when they refuse to adapt. The engines may still roar today, but the question is, for how much longer? Final words. So when you see a Harley glide past on the highway, know this: you might be witnessing a living icon in its final chapter, or the beginning of its rebirth. The outcome hasn't been written yet. Only time and the choices made in the next few years will decide if Harley remains a roar on the road or fades into a whisper of memory.